Aquaba, welcome fam to You Ain't Imagining This, the podcast show where we center culture, community, and real conversation as pathways to Black empowerment and liberation. So pull up a chair, pour your tea, grab your plate, because today we are sitting at the table together. I'm Amma Robin, your host, food lover, and sister who always brings extra hot sauce. I'm so glad that we are sharing this space together today. Before we begin, I want to say Asante Sana, thank you. Asante Sana to everyone who's listened, shared, and supported this podcast. Every message, every repost, every kind word helps this community grow. We're not doing this alone. We are building it together. Now, let's get into today's episode where we will discuss food and survival at the table. Now, I don't know what's on your table today, but I'll tell you mine. I'm thinking of Sunday dinners at my grandmother's house. The greens simmering on the stove, cornbread still warm from the oven, laughter rolling across the table louder than any sermon. Those meals weren't just about food. They were about survival. They were about belonging. They were about knowing we were held in love no matter what waited us outside those doors. And that's what I want to talk about today, because for us, food has never been just about food. Our kitchens, our cafés, our tables, they've been places of memory, resistance, and healing. Places where movements were planned, where culture was preserved, where we taught each other how to keep going. And today, those spaces are harder to hold on to. Hustle culture, gentrification, food insecurity, even the isolation of being the only Black face in a workplace or at school. They all pull us away from the table. And when we lose that table, we lose more than a meal. We lose connection. We lose wisdom. We lose the chance to be fed in every sense of the word. So in this Yate Espresso Talk, I want us to reclaim the table in big ways and in small ways, because every table can be a safe table. Every meal can be a moment of healing. And yes, this conversation has a home in Yatetown too, at the Umoja Cafe, but we'll get to that later. I'm so glad you're here today, and you ain't imagining this. Before we get started, and just because it'll feel good, let's take a cleansing breath together. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. There's something sacred about the way we as Black folks gather around food. Not just to eat, but to exist, to remember, and to stay feeling human in a world that keeps trying to erase and dehumanize us. From the beginning, food has been a powerful language of survival. Enslaved people, my ancestors, maybe yours too, carried recipes and rhythms from Africa, rice-growing traditions, okra seeds, palm oil memories, and kept them alive throughout the world. Our ancestors turned scraps into sustenance. They turned spices into stories. Every pot was an act of resistance, and every shared meal was a whisper of freedom. Now, that may sound like an exaggeration, but I promise you it's not. When we ate food and sat at a meal together, we were staying alive and growing stronger. And yes, when we ate together, we grew stronger, not just as individuals, but as a community. Food was never just about feeding the body. It was about keeping the spirit and the community alive. You could taste Africa in every spoonful, even if the world tried to take it away. Again, not an exaggeration. It all came from Africa, brought by us or stolen from us. And our foods were a reminder of the motherland and stirred up hope for freedom from bondage and reminded us of our continued connection to Africa. So let's fast forward a century, because this is a long story and we have limited time. So let's jump ahead to Harlem, 1920s, 1930s, 1940s. The Harlem Renaissance cafés, places like the Clam House, the Hot Cha, Teresa's Hotel's dining room, they weren't just places to eat or perform, though you definitely did that there. They were think tanks, salons, meeting rooms. Greats Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Duke Ellington all knew that the right meal could open up conversations that changed art, community, and politics. That's right. And then jumping ahead again, then came the civil rights era, and the kitchen table became a war room, planning place. Movements were planned while someone fried chicken and someone else folded flyers. I know Ella Baker said that strong people don't need strong leaders, but she might have added that strong movements need full bellies. Because before marches, there were meals. That's true. Before speeches, there was someone stirring a pot and saying, "Eat, baby, you're going to need your strength." And they did. Every plate has been political. Every meal has been a gathering of survival and love. Our history has always been told in the language of food. Food has always been present, not through fancy cookbooks or glossy restaurant menus, though that came a bit later, but still no less powerful, but through hands, pots, and the sharing of what little we had. I'm sure that you see that this conversation is about food, yes, but it is so much more than that. Food is survival. I just got to admit that. And we've worked hard to survive in a world that has often made survival a radical act for us. But we've done more than survive through food. We've made food an experience, an expression, one filled with joy, creativity, memory, and community. Our recipes connect us not only to our mothers and grandmothers, but to those who came before them. Each dish carries both the struggle and the sweetness of our lineage. I do read a lot of those colorful cookbooks that have come out recently, and they are powerful. And in one particular book called Black Food, chef and, yes, he's an activist, Bryant Terry calls Black food a communal shrine to the shared histories of the African diaspora. Ooh. He reminds us that our food isn't simply nourishment. It's an expression of courage, commitment, and self-discovery, an art form that moves each of us to a better and freer place. That's the heart of Black food. It is never neutral. I'm going to repeat that because people say some issues are just neutral and food is one of them. No, not food for us, not Black food. It carries centuries of strife and triumph, of land loss and reclamation, of want and abundance. Think about the freedom struggle through the lens of food, the fight for farmland ownership after Reconstruction, the rise of cooperative grocery stores and community gardens during Jim Crow, the Black farmers markets that still bloom in neighborhoods that were once called food deserts. Each of these is a story of resilience and reclamation. Another cookbook, and I just have to bring this up, was called Ghetto Gastro. And the authors, they take this idea even farther, calling food a weapon. They show how access to food and the denial of it has always been political, a line drawn along race and class. Food deserts, they still exist. Food deserts and corporate grocery monopolies and inequitable farming systems all remind us of what we've been told we can and cannot have. And we hear that a lot as Black folks. But as Ghetto Gastro proves, food can also be a counterweapon, a way to reclaim our flavor, our pride, our creativity. I think about their one famous dish, and I've made this, and it is so good. Their famous dish called the Triple C's: cornbread, crab salad, and caviar. And that's a culinary remix, a delicious declaration that Black cuisine belongs everywhere, in the hood, on our block, and on the world's finest tables. It belongs to us. And it belongs for us. Food has always been more than just eating. It's gathering, it's planning and celebrating. It's mourning, it's struggling, it's fighting. And it's dancing and it's loving. It's how we build and rebuild communities. Every liberation meeting had food. Every church basement after Sunday service served food. Every rent party where neighbors helped each other to keep their homes centered food. And every funeral repast, those sacred tables of remembrance, became spaces where grief met love through collard greens and cornbread. Even the cookout, which we at You Ain't Imagining This have talked about before, even the cookout is not just a social event. It's a cultural archive, a ritual of belonging, and it's where family reunions meet political reunions, and it's where music, laughter, and healing all happen in the same backyard. We are a food people. That's not a stereotype. That's a truth, a strength, and a legacy. Now, sometimes associating us with food has been used in a stereotyped way, but that's not how I accept it. When we gather around food, we don't just eat, we restore ourselves. When we get together in community, we are at our most powerful and our most creative, and also our most caring. Food is the common language that reminds us of who we are and what we can build together. And yet, somewhere along the way, we started losing that table. Today, many of us, myself included, live in a world that praises the grind more than the gathering. We eat at our desks. We scroll through meals we barely taste. We're so caught in the hustle culture, that sitting sit down to eat together can feel like a luxury. Add that to the painful truth, it's just there, of gentrification, the quiet erasure of Black cafés, diners, and soul food spots that once anchored neighborhoods. Places where people could walk in and be known, where laughter and conversation were as nourishing as the food itself. A lot of those places are gone. Now, a coffee shop might still sit on that same corner, but the faces have changed. The walls no longer carry the same music or memory. Food insecurity makes it even harder. Healthy, fresh food is often less accessible in Black neighborhoods. Supermarkets are disappearing. They're replaced by fast food chains. The message is clear: convenience over culture, speed over nourishment. And then there is racial isolation. I've talked about that a lot on Yate. So many of us spend our days in predominantly white spaces, eating lunch alone, managing the quiet feeling or the quiet ache of invisibility. The food might still fill our stomachs, but it definitely doesn't fill the spirit. It's hard to explain to someone who's never felt it, the difference between being full and feeling fed. And it's not that we stopped loving our people or our food. It's that we were pushed into a world that made connection harder to sustain. And even the memory of the table is still inside of us. We still know how to gather. We still crave the warmth of conversation over a shared plate. I know you're feeling it too. I know you're remembering. And every time we slow down and cook from our roots or eat with intention, we reclaim a piece of what was taken. Because the truth is, we have not truly lost the table. It's what they're waiting for us to come back. And I have a story that kind of talks about maybe what some of the problems are. It may just illustrate that. A few years ago, I went to a book fair in Chicago. It was an amazing experience. Rows of books and authors signing books and people talking about stories and ideas. And I was especially excited to see one of my then favorite cookbook authors. He was scheduled to speak, and I couldn't wait to hear him. I had just bought his cookbook, and I had been using it quite a lot. Actually, it had been a standard in my cooking library. And his talk was engaging at first. He gave smart cooking tips and stories from his travels and thoughts about nutrition. And I was just listening along, being fully inspired. And then someone in the audience asked him if there was any type of cuisine he did not like. He smiled, and he leaned into the microphone and said proudly, almost casually, "I've never cared for sub-Saharan African cuisine. It's coarse, it's lumpy, it lacks in nuance and spice. Nothing very interesting." I completely froze. Do you believe that? And what shocked me even more was that the audience nodded in agreement. I was looking around and people were nodding and saying, "Oh yeah, I can see that." As if what he had said was perfectly true and reasonable. No one challenged him. No one pushed back. I raised my hand. He definitely didn't call on me. That moment was more than a careless insult, and it was insulting and offensive and just plain ignorant. It was a perfect example of how Black culture and food, particularly food, are dismissed in plain sight, right up front, right in our faces. Our food, our flavors, our genius, reduced to stereotypes or just completely ignored. Across sub-Saharan Africa, there are thousands, literally thousands of cuisines, each with its own ingredients and techniques and stories. But this white man felt confident enough to erase all of them with one arrogant sentence. And he was completely supported in that. And that's what cultural disregard looks like. That's what we're up against here, not just in the kitchen, but everywhere our creativity, labor, and brilliance have fed the world. It still makes me shake and angry to talk about it. And by the way, when I got back home, I took that cookbook off of my shelf, and I still have never referred to that. And of course, I've lost complete respect for him. We feel this kind of disrespect in small ways every day. When our food is called, too heavy or too greasy, but then other cuisines with the same ingredients are called gourmet. When we open restaurants and get told our prices are just too high, while others profit off of our recipes, and then they call it modern Southern, or this one really upsets me, or fusion. When our history is erased from menus, cookbooks, and classrooms, all of that matters because food is identity, and its culture, and its respect, and its history, and the erasure of our food is the erasure of all of us. Even more so, the disrespect and the insult of our food insults all of us. But still, like we do, we keep cooking, we keep innovating, we keep telling our stories through flavor and spices and techniques and textures. Because for every insult or dismissal, there's a kitchen somewhere, someone's auntie, someone's uncle, someone's neighbor, proving that we have always been creators, preservers, and visionaries at the table. Moments like that, when our food, our culture, and our genius are dismissed, can make us all want to turn away and to stop sharing and to eat in silence. But silence has never fed us, so we keep gathering, even when the world forgets the value of our table. And they don't often forget. They steal it, they disrespect it, and sometimes they forget it. But that's why all of this matters. Because if we lose the table, we lose more than a meal. We lose connection, wisdom, and the feeling of being seen. And we can't let that happen. When we lose the table, we lose something far greater than a place to eat. We lose the connection across generations. We lose the cultural wisdom that used to pass from hand to hand, recipes, stories, lessons, laughter, joy. We lose the safe spaces where we could talk about hard things and still feel safe and supported. But we also have to ask why we might have lost it. What's threatening our table? It hasn't just disappeared, and it hasn't happened overnight. It has been taken from us slowly through systems, expectations, and exhaustion. Because I always say, the powers that be know how powerful our table is. They know how genius our food is. And so they've been doing so much to take that away from us. When we lose the table, we start eating the way mainstream culture has told us to. Fast, individual, disconnected from our roots. We begin following schedules that leave no room for slow cooking or for family meals or space for community. That chips away at our power and our liberation. Mainstream culture taught us that efficiency is more important than connection, that eating quickly at your desk is productive, and that gathering, nice, but optional. And we believed it because survival in this system often demands and supports that belief. And yes, I'm going to say it. Capitalism forced us to trade time for money and rest for our labor. We've talked about rest a whole lot. And capitalism has taken that away from us. It told us to keep moving, to keep producing, and to see food as fuel rather than as culture. We learned to order what's convenient instead of what's ancestral and what's going to feel so good in our own bodies and what the community is going to develop from that. Societal pressures force us to conform, to shrink the spices. Oh yes, have you heard that? It's too spicy. To silence the smells. Oh, I don't want to smell all that food. Turn on the fan. To make our food acceptable in spaces that were never built for us. I can't stand the smell of what is it that you're making? Many of us learn to eat quietly in white workplaces, to leave the curry, the collards, or the jollof at home because we've seen and felt the looks and the nose going up. What is that you're eating? Ooh, that's so exotic. Or, ooh, it smells funny. I know you've heard that too. I know I have. We've edited our plates so that we wouldn't stand out. Job demands and survival coping, there's that term again, have added another layer. When you're overworked, underpaid, or constantly proving your worth in predominantly white spaces, cooking from your culture can feel impossible. You feel othered. You eat what's quick, not what's sacred. You reach for what's available, not what's home to you. And then there is the loss of community itself. And we've seen that happen over the decades, and I believe that is intentional. Families scattered across cities, even the country, now even in other countries. Friends too tired to gather. Elders no longer living close by. The village that once gathered around the table has been stretched thin by modern life. By modern Western life, I'm going to say. And the result is that the table, the communal, cultural, grounding table, has been replaced by individual plates, tiny screens or big screens, and schedules. It's not that we have stopped loving our food or our people. It's that the world around us made gathering for us harder to sustain. And when we did, it looked at us with suspicion and didn't like that we were gathering. So these things I'm talking about didn't just happen. They weren't just a coincidence. I never believe in coincidences. They were intentional and they were driven into us. But one thing they can't do is take away the memory. And the memory of the table has never left us. It's still there, waiting. Every time we cook from our roots or eat with intention together, we reclaim a piece of what was taken from us. Because the truth is, we really haven't truly lost the table. It's waiting for us to come back. And you know what happens when you go to a family reunion or you go to a cookout or you go home to eat your grandmother's food. You just feel held and supported and like life is good. I do have along those lines another personal reflection I'll just quickly share. I was recently on vacation with a close friend. Actually, I'll call her my dear sister because that's exactly what she is. We rented an apartment together on vacation, and I had imagined that we would go out to dinner every night, trying new restaurants, tasting new dishes, exploring the local scene. And yeah, we did do that a few times, and I admit I really enjoyed it. But the nights that have really stayed with me were the ones we spent at home cooking. Nothing fancy, just simple meals made with care. A pot of chili, a pan of cornbread. We sat at the dining room table for hours, talking about our lives, sharing stories, laughing until we both were wiping away tears. We talked about our families, our hopes, and the things we still dream about. Those nights were so full, and I just smile. I'm smiling now, wish you could see me, thinking about those evenings, not because of the food itself, but because of the connection that came with it. In that small apartment, we created a space that was completely ours, a space of comfort, trust, honesty, and safety. It was a safe zone. I could laugh with her, cry with her, hug her, and be fully myself. She wasn't just my friend. She is my sister. And moments like that remind me that when we reclaim the table, we also reclaim ourselves. And this brings me back to a theme that I've talked about in many shows, that the collective is survival for us. We are stronger together as a community. And that's something that our society, or Western society, has tried to take away from us. They tried to get us to admire rugged individualism and think of us as tiny points of light out there by ourselves. But we are more than that. This is a reminder that our survival is collective. Even when we're sitting alone at a kitchen table or eating lunch in a quiet office, we're not as alone as it feels. We are still connected to the people who taught us to cook, and to the memories that have shaped our taste, and to the ancestors who made a way with what they had, and who made a way out of no way. So every time we cook or share a meal, we're participating in something larger than ourselves. The same recipes, the same hunger for belonging, the same love that says, sit down and eat, they all live inside of us. That's why food matters so deeply in our community. It's not just about what's on the plate. That's important, but it's also about who we remember, who we care for, who we bring into the room and to the table with us. Our strength has always come from gathering, from caring for one another, from making sure that no one leaves hungry, physically or emotionally. We are people who pass down more than food. We pass down comfort, pride, and love. And in doing that, we remind each other that survival has never been a solo act. It's always been a collective promise. I'll feed you, and you'll feed me, and together we will keep going. I just want to repeat this next part because it's so important, and it's not a judgment on anyone. It's an observation and an insight, and I would love to hear your views on this too. When we share a meal, time slows down. Our nervous systems rest. We look into each other's eyes and say, I see you. You matter. I've noticed this myself. When I eat alone, rushed, checking email, or thinking about work, I feel disconnected, like I'm refueling a machine, not caring for a human being, myself. But when I eat with someone like my sister, my family, my friends, when I pause, listen, taste, and remember where the food came from, something inside me softens. I'm reminded that we're not meant to survive alone. Maybe that's what the table has always symbolized for us. It's a reminder that survival is collective, that even in our isolation, we're still connected by the same recipes, techniques, memories, the same hunger for belonging, the same love that insists, sit down and eat. It is a reminder that survival is collective. That we are a people who pass down more than food, And in doing so, we remind each other that our survival isn't solo, it's collective. And so, yes, food is culture. And it's also care. And it's a way of saying, I want you to live. Now you know what's next, and I know what y'all are wanting. I know you want some food too, but we're going to talk about what we can do to reclaim the table. We need the action. We've talked about the history, the loss, the meaning of the table. Now it's time to do something about it. Because the truth is, people want to take action. We all do. We don't always know where to begin. Reclaiming the table doesn't require perfection. It just asks for intention, some consistency, and some care. Now I'm going to mention 10 ways to begin. Some are small enough to start today. Others that may take a little more time in planning. No need to rush around to write this down. It's going to be on the blog on the You Ain't Imagining This website. Maybe pick out one that I throw out there for you. Number 1, cook one ancestral dish. Choose one recipe that connects you to your people. Your grandmother's greens, your father's cornbread, your auntie's pepper stew, your mother's rice and beans. Make it this week and say their name as you cook. For me, it's going to be grits. And I'm going to say my father's name. Number 2, share a meal, big or small. Invite someone to eat with you. It can be one person, a neighbor, a friend, or your whole family. Cook at home, meet in the park, or share a meal virtually. What matters is the gathering, not the setting. Number 3, start a cafe talk moment. Cafe talk in quotes. Pick one day per month for a real conversation over food. It could be at your home or your office or even online. Again, it doesn't matter the setting. Choose a theme: healing, joy, resistance, dreaming, and use that time to connect through food and dialogue. Number 4, support a Black food space. Eat at a Black-owned restaurant or cafe. Buy from a Black farmer's market, a Black caterer, or a Black food truck. Post about it, tag them, and let others know where our community and our culture are thriving. Number 5, create a memory dish. Ask an elder, a parent, or an older friend about a dish, that they remember from their childhood. Cook it with them or for them. Record their story or write it down. The recipe is the history book. Number 6, host a Reclaim the Table gathering. Once per season, and the season just changed, the fall season, invite people over for a potluck that centers culture and conversation. Ask everyone to bring a dish that tells a story about where they came from or who they love. Keep the phones away and keep the music on. Number 7, grow something that you can eat. This is great to do with children too. Plant herbs on your windowsill or start a small garden. Even a single basil or mint plant can connect you to the land and to the slow rhythm of nourishment. Growing is also gathering. Number 8, practice a screen-free meal. It's hard to even say that. Practice a screen-free meal. Once this week, eat without your phone, the computer, or the television. Sit, taste, listen. Think about who made the meal possible. It's a small way to reclaim mindfulness and gratitude. Number 9, document your table. Take a photo, write a note, or record a voice memo about a meal that meant something to you. What did it smell like? Who was there? What did it teach you? These moments become your personal archive of community. And number 10, and this one really touches my heart, feed someone else. Drop off a meal for a neighbor or an elder or a friend who's going through a hard time. Cook for someone who can't cook for themselves. Feeding others has always been our most radical tradition. Reclaiming the table isn't just about food. It's about remembering who we are. Each of these actions, no matter how small, rebuilds the connections that keep us alive and whole. When we feed each other, we feed hope. And when we gather, we create community. And when we sit down together, we remind the world that we're still here and that we're still nourishing one another in every way that matters. And you might be surprised at how quickly one meal becomes community. As much as I love talking about food and gathering, I know we're going to have to wind this down, and I just wanted to give a personal reflection of why I chose this topic for today. As I talk about reclaiming the table, I really can't help but think about what food has meant in my own life, how it has shaped me and grounded me and connected me to the people I come from. And because this isn't just theory for me, this is personal. Food has always carried my history, my joy, and my identity. And recently, I was reminded of that in a way I didn't expect. Food has always been a part of my life, and not in a way that you might think. A few months ago, I visited the Smithsonian Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. I've been there before, and it was still a transcendent walk through the Black experience in America. Downstairs, I moved through 4 centuries of our history, and I stood before Nat Turner's Bible, a relic that still seemed to breathe to me. I saw child-sized shackles, real iron, once worn on the wrists and ankles of children who looked like me, or my son. I felt the power of the civil rights movement in every photograph, in every hymn, and every display. There was defiant beauty and faith. And upstairs was another experience. I was surrounded by celebration, by the art, the music, and the literature that shaped the United States and the world. And I felt the pulse of Black genius in every corner. But it was on the ground floor level that I was most unexpectedly moved. Inside the museum's cafeteria, the Sweet Home Cafe. The moment I walked in, something shifted. The air carried the scent of okra and gumbo, fried chicken and mac and cheese, and suddenly I wasn't only in a museum anymore. I was back at my great-grandmother's Texas kitchen, Houston, where the stove never seemed to rest and love was measured by the serving spoon because she would heap it on. I could almost taste her pound cake, dense, sweet, and always perfect. Then I was in my father's kitchen, watching him move proudly from pan to pan. He was a home chef with his own rhythm, his own recipes, and cornbread and fried chicken and green beans seasoned just right. And then I was back at our Christmas table from my childhood, when joy felt simple and abundant. As an adult, my cravings expanded to plantains and jollof rice and pepper stew and groundnut stew, flavors that connected me to the wider African diaspora and reminded me that our food is global. It's evolving, and really it's unbroken. That day at the Smithsonian Museum of Black History, I realized that I wasn't just walking through a museum. I was really in a living archive of our culture, and I could feel the ancestors seated at the table beside me. I have had similar experiences in places like the Legacy Museum in Montgomery and in Oakland at Lois the Pie Queen's kitchen. These are spaces that fed both my memory, and my body too. Yes, I enjoy the food, but more than that, I cherish the continuity that they represent. Every meal is a remembrance, and every flavor had a story to it, and every bite carries the presence of those who came before us, still cooking and loving and still here. And no, that is not an exaggeration, and I definitely wasn't imagining that. Now, in closing, this week, I challenge you to think about the table in your life. Maybe it's a family dinner. Maybe it's coffee with a friend. Maybe it's even a simple bowl of beans you make just for yourself. Whatever it is, let it be more than just food. Let it be connection and memory, and let it be the moment of rest and resistance. Because if we lose the table, we lose more than a meal. But when we reclaim it, even in small ways, we reclaim each other, we reclaim our survival, and we reclaim our joy. That's why in Yate Town, it's coming soon, I mentioned it earlier, there's going to be a place called the Umoja Cafe. Umoja is Swahili for unity. The cornbread is always warm, and the tea is always sweet, and every table is a safe table. It's a reminder that healing happens best when we gather together, and when we eat and laugh, when we speak our truths out loud. I'm Amma Robin. So remember, this week, find your table, share your dish, share your story, and let it feed us all. Because you never have to carry it alone, and you ain't imagining this.